as I said yesterday, the big announcement of the government, and one of the things that's happened in my lifetime, in actual fact, it never used to be. The budget used to be a big deal. These days it's pretty damn squid because all the new good news has come out, or all the news that the government wants to focus you on. But the announcement yesterday, I think it was made in Hawke's Bay, so she may well have been at the announcement. In fact, I'm sure she was the government's cyclone recovery package. And it will be a journey. The Finance Minister, Chris Hipkins, said yesterday, I'm sure it will. But to talk about that and to see if it does meet the needs of her local community, joining us, one of those telegenic individuals, is the Napier City Mayor, Kirsten Wise. Kirsten, good morning to you.
Oh, good morning, Michael.
Actually, just before we get stuck into that, telegenic's important, isn't it? Optics are now really important in terms of politics, aren't they?
Oh, yes, they certainly are. That's the modern day of politics.
Yeah, because you used to be ugly. I mean, people like me, for example, used to get elected. But it's very hard for ugly people to get elected now. I'm not being nasty. It's just, you can't, no matter how much talent you've got, attractive people or people who are more telegenic or both tend to be at an advantage, don't they?
I think it actually comes down to people that present themselves well and that take pride in their appearance. I don't know that it necessarily needs to hinge on their level of attractiveness as such, but certainly being able to present yourself, in a good way is very important.
I agree. All right, now, Kirsten, the announcement was made yesterday. Is that right? It was made in Taradale?
Yes, that's right, by one of our stop banks that was actually able to stop breaches during the cyclone. So that's where, the Prime Minister and Minister Robertson made that announcement.
You were there?
I wasn't there at that part of the day, but we met with them for lunch and some further conversation around the recovery package a little bit later in the day.
Were you invited? Because I saw the Hawke's Bay Regional Council's Hinawai Ormsby there, and she was the chairperson, I think.
Yes, that's right. So obviously with the Regional Council being responsible for that sort of flood protection infrastructure such as stop banks, that's why she was invited along to that one, yes.
Okay. All right. Now, I've just gone through some of just a very, given a quick overview of what that package was yesterday. For your community, and I noted in my introductory remarks this morning that Finance Minister Robertson said that, quote, we're giving each community what it needs now. Is what you got yesterday what Napier needs now?
It certainly addresses some of the needs, and when we met with Minister Robertson yesterday afternoon, he did acknowledge that there will be further funding to come, and multi-year funding, in fact, because this really is a marathon recovery. So it's great that we've had the 100 million for flood protection, because obviously investing in those stop banks and other flood protection mitigation measures is vital if we're going to continue to have weather events such as this. And I think certainly as well for me, the additional mental health funding is very much needed at the moment. So it's a step in the right direction, but there is definitely going to be a requirement for more as we move forward on the journey.
Just before we go on to the bits that might be missing, the additional mental health funding, is that because there is trauma associated with the event or because you had high mental health needs anyhow?
This is, I believe, more specifically around the trauma that people are experiencing due to the event. We have had community members that have literally lost everything, their business, their house, their livelihood. And there is definitely, we have already had some suicides, sadly, and there's a very real need for support for these people in our community.
Okay, and how much did they say how much they were going to make there and how they were delivering that money, or was it just a sum of money?
It's so there's $10 million, and it is going to be for community-led mental wellbeing initiatives. That's about the level of detail that we've got at the moment. So we look forward to finding out.
Is that $10 million over the whole region, or is it just over Napier?
No, that's over the whole region, yes.
Oh, it's not going to go very far then. Okay. Oh, well, but as you say, it's better than nothing. All right, next issue. What was missing? I've heard already from the horticultural community. Actually, they texted me last night and said, well, there's nothing in it for us. who said that they believe that they've been left out or excluded from that. Do you feel a similar fear there?
They were in attendance yesterday. We had some representatives from our hort industry, which was good that they were there to put that question to the Minister. And the Minister acknowledged that in this particular announcement there wasn't anything directly for that sector. He said that there is a lot of work still being done, however, as to how the Crown can support our horticultural sector. And it's really vital that they are supported. What that looks like is still the big question at the moment.
Yeah, I guess, Kirsten, and I mean, you'll be aware of this too. You and I both would be, through experience. Yeah, if they're delivering to the communities what they need now, I'm sorry, but delivering any funding to the horticulture community, well, at the very earliest 12 months' time, it's not what you need now, is it? My understanding is they need help with silt, regrowing, replanting, decisions around whether or not they're going to plant on the place, scientific advice, technological assistance, etc. Why didn't that happen?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and that was the point that the representatives there really drove home as well, that these decisions and how they're going to be supported, they need to know sooner rather than later, so that they can then decide, as you said, do they replant, do they rebuild, or are they best just to move on? So that point was hammered home very strongly yesterday to the Minister, and he did provide assurance that it should be within the next couple of weeks, late May, early June, that there'll be further information for the horticultural sector.
But I mean, if it's not in the budget, it's not in the budget at the end of the day. We know that, Kirsten. So, okay. Now, Napier itself. I love your city. I think that you and Nelson are the two premier provincial cities in this country, if not the two premier cities. It's a bit of a contest between both of you. And at the moment, you're probably winning it. Well, you were before Cyclone Gabriel. How have you got back? So since Cyclone Gabriel, if I was to go to Napier now, have I still got places underwater?
No, we actually have moved forward quite considerably with our recovery, and we, compared to some of our neighbours, we haven't been impacted to the extent that the likes of the Esk Valley, Puketapu, some of those other areas, because the interesting thing we've got here is that the Hastings District Council actually wraps completely around us.
Yeah.
I mean, we have been assisting to support those communities because they very much identify with Napier and actually utilise a lot of our facilities, etc. But in terms of the direct impact on the Napier community, we've had 128 houses impacted compared to Hastings, which is well over 1,000. So, we're able to really focus on those areas of high need because we don't have the volume that some of our neighbours have. Our Awatoto industrial area is probably the one that we are still having to work really closely with the business owners there and support them. Some of those businesses were completely decimated, and that's one of the high areas of focus for us in our recovery planning. I think that the key thing for us, though, was that for the initial 1 to 2 weeks immediately after the cyclone, we were pretty much an island. We got cut off from all of the lifelines, no power, no telecommunications, no road access. We couldn't get to our hospital because it's in Hastings. We couldn't get to our main police station. It's in Hastings. Civil Defence is in Hastings. So where we're trying to actually have a really, really honest conversation with central government is actually it's unacceptable that a city with a population of nearly 70,000 people, can end up in a situation where they're completely cut off from the rest of the country. And that's obviously a long-term recovery plan that's required to address those issues.
Yes, all right. Now, that brings me up to Te Awa, the residential area that was built. I've talked to, for example, we had on the show, Neil Curtin, for example, from the Regional Council, is one of your Napier ward reps, so I'm sure you know Neil well, who said that was not a good place to put a residential section. But there's a whole lot of houses there. What's the future of that residential area?
Well, actually, the stormwater infrastructure in Te Awa did exactly what it needed to do during the cyclone. So there were some houses flooded in there, but that was due to the stop bank breach in Awatoto, which the water travelled through the golf course and did impact some properties in Te Awa. But no, from a stormwater perspective, that suburb has had the investment that it needs to deal with these types of weather events.
So it's the regional council at fault there for not making sure the storm banks work properly. So the flood banks.
Oh, well, not pointing fingers at all, but it was a stop bank breach. Flooding,
oh, you guys are so diplomatic when you're not. All right. Hey, listen, the other thing too is Whirinaki. So I think that's probably in Hastings, isn't it? It's north of Bayview, isn't it, that one? So I think it might be in the Hastings area.
Yes.
But nevertheless,
yeah,
it'll be a massive employer for people from Napier. Is that when's that getting underway, or is it underway already?
Look, they are well and truly underway. Pretty much, as you can imagine, they're a multinational type business, and they just got straight onto it. And they had their own recovery plan that they had pulled together, sent through to central government within a matter of weeks of the actual cyclone. So they are definitely intending to remain and rebuild, and they're well and truly down the track to doing that.
And finally, there's been, I've just got some text here through while I've been talking to you about people who've donated money, including myself. A lot of us do it through Red Cross and things like that. There's a lot of unallocated money we're now being advised by the media that we've donated, i.e. the people of New Zealand, for people in Napier. Have you caught up with that frustration?
Look, definitely, yeah. I hear from people quite regularly that are concerned that those funds don't seem to be getting allocated out as quickly as they could. I did meet with the Chief Executive of Red Cross, it was several weeks ago now, and she explained to me the planning that was underway, and that they were really just trying to identify where the true gaps were. One of the ideas that they were considering at the time, and I believe it is being progressed, is actually funding appliance packages, for example, for those property owners that have lost everything.
Yep.
And, the reality is they're not going to need that right now. They're probably not even back in their houses yet. So some of that funding, there will be delays so that it can be used at the time that the community needs it. In saying that, look, I also totally understand people's desire to see the money going out and see the money supporting our community. And we're certainly working really hard with our Hawke's Bay Disaster Relief Fund to do that. And we'll just keep trying to ensure that people are aware of how the money's being spent.
And finally, you've been through, I think you're onto your third earthquake recovery minister. Stuart Nash is gone, Mika Whaitari's gone, now I think Damien McAnulty is the minister. Is that causing any problems?
Kieran McAnulty.
Sorry, Kieran, that's right. Is that causing you difficulties getting decisions out of central government?
No, not at all. So we have set up here our own regional recovery agency, which we've received funding support from the government to get that operating, and that will be the real the working room, the working beast to actually do our regional recovery planning, and it has direct links into the task force being led by Sir Brian Roach, and straight into the likes of Minister Robertsons as the cabinet minister. And Kieran's been great. He's come in, like you say, he's the third one, but he is very accessible, and we're really confident that he's actually going to do a good job for us in that role.
And finally, this one. You've lived there a long time. Anybody who's lived in the Bay knows that the Hawke's Bay and the Heretaunga Plains was created by flood activity. That's the reason why it's so fertile. That's the reason why it's such a magnificent horticultural, viticultural area. That means that we know that the climate's changing, and we know that we're likely to get more extreme weather events. Let's just hope that Gabriel is still the oddity rather than perhaps, the 1 in 10 year norm. But the only way that, and you would be much better equipped for this, but the only way that I can see from the outside looking in is that you could protect the plains and everybody in it, and all of that is to have higher flood banks, higher stop banks. That's about the only mechanism I could think of. Maybe you dredge the rivers or something like that. Is that still the only game in town, or is there, nope, we're going to need to move people?
Those are the decisions that need to be made over probably the next sort of between now and July is where we are aiming to make some of those what will be incredibly challenging decisions and conversations with our community. There definitely are areas where by investing in that infrastructure we can continue to have communities living there, but we do need to accept the fact that we are having more and more of these weather events, and if there are places where, for example, insurance companies are actually just going to refuse to insure, there's a multiple of different things to be considered in the decision-making process, and a number of parties will have to be involved in making those decisions. But what we have committed to is ensuring that our community is well and truly, part of that conversation and that we're hearing their views on it as well.
Okay, but so I'm thinking straight away, Waiahiki, which was near the washed out Redcliffe Bridge and obviously the damaged power substation. Pakawai, and sort of that Brookfields area with, again, another bridge washed away. Are there any other communities where that conversation is going to need to be held?
We have had some risk analysis done on, the whole of the Hawke's Bay. So the Hawke's Bay Regional Council has been leading that exercise. At the same time, the insurance companies have been doing the same exercise based on their data. The two lots of information have now been overlaid across each other, and I haven't been privy to that yet, but my understanding is that they are quite aligned in terms of identifying where those high-risk areas are. And so that is, and you would have been aware, of course, we've got the three categories that Minister Robertson announced a couple of weeks ago in terms of having those conversations. So, category 1, where we can pretty much tell them by the end of this month you're good to go, you can start rebuilding and repairing. Category 2, where there is going to be additional investment required in stop banks and other mitigation measures before we can give them the green light. And then there's category 3, which will be those communities that we may actually be saying, look, you can't rebuild, you're not going to be able to be reinsured, and have that really challenging conversation. So that's all in the pipeline for us over the next couple of months.
So when is that likely to be released, Kirsten, that information?
As I said, at this stage, the goal is to have those Category 1 communities notified at the end of this month, and then we will be starting meeting with, and this will be with individuals, this will be house by house, meeting with those property owners that sit in Category 2 and 3 from the start of June to start having that conversation with them.
So if I'm not in Category 1, when you're publicly announced that I'm good to go, I've got trouble.
Well, that's exactly right. Then you will know that you're either in Category 2 or 3, and that's why we want to take the time to actually meet with people individually, because this is their lives. This is, everyone knows your home is your castle, and we're just so conscious of, how the impact this is going to have on our community, and we just want to ensure that we take the time to sit and talk with them and make those decisions in a really robust way.
Kirsten, thank you very much for your time. You did a magnificent job. Can I just compliment you on your job as Mayor during that particular time? I know that it won't be easy for any of you or your colleagues. The very best of luck to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael.
Okay. All right, thank you. That is Kirsten Wise. She's the Mayor of Napier. Yes, they all stepped up, the mayors. They did a pretty good job. Mind you would expect them to. That's what they're paid to do, but they did. Interestingly, all three councils, or three of the major councils, Gisborne, Tairāwhiti, Napier and Hastings, led by female mayors, but Craig Little was the mayor of Wairoa, and he's been on the show as well. It'll be interesting to get their perspective, because they still feel forgotten and abandoned. Talk to you a little bit more. And also on the future of forestry. A report has just come out. Oh my God, it is bad.